Hello, my name is Jacob Salmon, and today I'm going to introduce capital structure through the Solar Technologies mini case. I'm going to introduce you to Modigliani and Miller. They were both professors as well as publishers in the 1950s. They had a paper on capital structure which assumed zero taxes that was published in 1958, and they added corporate taxes to their theories and studies in 1963. Modigliani went on to win the Nobel Prize in Economics, in part because of his work and the most subsequent work on capital structure theory that stems from M&M. Here are a few assumptions that derived from those theories and those works of literature. Firms' business risk can be measured by EBIT, and firms with the same degree of risk can be grouped into homogeneous business risk classes. All investors have identical homogeneous expectations about all firms' future earnings. There are no transaction or brokerage costs, either to individuals or the firms. All debt is riskless, and both individuals and corporations can borrow an unlimited amount of cash at a risk-free rate. All cash flows are perpetuities. This implies that the firm's individual issues perpetual debt, and also the firm pays out all earnings as dividends, hence zero growth. Additionally, this implies that the expected EBIT is constant over time, although realized EBIT may not turn out to be higher or lower than it was expected to be. We're to assume that firm U and L are in the same risk class and both have an EBIT equaling $500,000. We wanted to find the equity of firm L, and this required us to find the value of firm L as well as use the given debt. So value minus debt became $2,571,429. It's become the equivalent cost of equities. Assuming that firms U and L are in the same risk class, we also assume, using Proposition 1 from M&M, that WACC is going to be equivalent throughout the risk class, regardless of leverage. And this can be verified using the WACC formula. In this instance, it gave us a WACC of 14%. In this chart, we have capital costs and leverage. If you take note, the WACC line, blue, as well as the debt line in orange, are consistent. This agrees with the theory that M&M proclaimed to us. The cost of debt is a constant 8%, as mentioned, with equity increasing with leverage. The further the increase in equity is exactly sufficient to keep the WACC constant. The more debt the firm adds to the capital structure, the riskier the equity, thus higher the cost. Note in this figure the horizontal line. In this firm's value against leverage, debt, This figure plots the firm's value against leverage, debt. With zero taxes, M&M argue that the value is unaffected by leverage, and thus the plot is horizontal. Here we take a look at similar graphs as shown earlier, but this time we are using value of a firm adding a 40% corporate tax rate. The weighted average cost of capital is the orange line represented here, and it is a slightly decreasing slanted line. That is because of the 40% corporate tax rate, and the usage of more and more debt is causing that to decline. Reversely, the blue line is the cost of equity, and it has got a dramatic spike as more and more debt is being used. Now that we've added corporate taxes, you can see that the firm's value here is increasing as more and more debt is being added to the firm. This is the valuation model that M&M uses. I believe it's the Miller's model in Proposition 1. it seems to be a tad complicated, but after you take into consideration that there are no personal taxes or corporate taxes used by the model, then it simplifies down to just the value of the firm L is equal to value of firm U multiplied by, or added to, the tax rate of the corporation tax rate multiplied by your outstanding debt. The MM and Miller's and Mageldonian models suggest many things. The three recommendations that we would suggest here are, in a perfect world, MM's theory says capital structure is irrelevant. But as we all know, that is not the case, and it is definitely relevant in modern times. Miller added the personal taxes to the analysis, decreasing the debt financing, which is a little bit more on the realistic transition of modern day firms, but still not quite up to the split of the debt financing as well as equity financing. Miller model is the most realistic, though, of the three, and the companies move towards the Miller model theory, but as I mentioned, the debt is decreasing back down. But in the MM perfect model, a higher debt would be ideal for a company, considering that the cost is practically free. Next, we are given a scenario where there is a 7% growth rate for firms U and L. Growing rates, the growing firms in that sense, actually disagree and do not agree with the assumptions that MM made. The extension to the MM model shows that how growth affects the value of debt, tax, and the cost of capital. The first difference is in the situations is that the appropriate discount rate for the debt tax shield is unlevered cost of equity and not cost of debt. The second difference is that the growing debt tax shield is more valuable than a constant debt tax shield, giving a new value for the firm U to become $3.5 million. If we were to disregard the thought process and theories of MM and that debt is practically free, the firm L becomes riskier. And what the question is asked, what if firms L debt is riskier? Well, something to consider would be the possibility of default risk, bankruptcy, and then obviously unhappy debt holders who would initially claim the company as well as any funds that were coming in from liquidation or closing costs of stock price. The question was asked, what if a firm is volatile? The value of equity increases as the volatility increases here. And the value of the debt decreases as well. The manager who knows this may choose to invest in proceeds from borrowing in assets that are riskier as usual to counter and offset the increase in equity. Thank you.